this is a, if I may bring you back to the comment you made earlier. But this is a larger question of the future of participatory research. And where is the future? What's the future? You mentioned about youth and young people. But also you made an observation which sort of I had not thought in those terms when you said that in the late 70s, early 80s, a number of participatory research networks were started. And today, in your assessment, PRIA is the only one which is surviving. What does it say about why or why not? And then within that, maybe what the young practitioners or young participatory researchers should be doing. Because we have to, has participatory research run its course, so to speak? Or has it disappeared in the somewhere in the hidden in between spaces? What's your sense?
A lot of questions in there, as well as the original question I don't want to lose. I don't think participatory action research or feminist informed research has run its course in the sense of that what it's about at base is speaking truth to power. That's really what it is at its base. And there are powerful powerful backlash, powerful resistance to speaking truth to power. There are, and so it may be periodically that action research, participatory action research kind of gets, first it gets sort of kind of pulled into the sort of traditional research. Once you have the World Bank talking about participatory action research, you're in trouble. And it's sort of like you're trying to figure out how to keep the radical edge at the same time you're trying to figure out, well, you want to keep the radical edge, but you've got to scale up enough to make difference. So there's that. For feminist and participatory approaches, I think you kind of do a couple of things at the same time. Read, read feminist scholarship, read participatory action research work, and something that I think is common to both of those ways of research is the whole notion of voice. Both these fields that are trying to somehow connect feminism and participatory action research are constantly asking who benefits from what knowledge. And so I think, for young researchers and young people, or young action researchers in the field, you keep looking at who's at the table, who has a voice, who doesn't have a voice here. And regardless of what you call it, I think you can be a voice in a project, you can be a voice in an organization, you can be a voice to say, well, who didn't we hear from? Who else could we include? Whose knowledge could be helpful to us? And then I think you have to find mentors. You have to find people who support your work, because whether it's participatory action, in PRIA you feel like, okay, well you've got an organization, that's what you're committed to. And you have spin-offs, you have other organizations that share your philosophical grounding. But that's not always the case. A lot of this work is very lonely. You have to find mentors, you have to find allied voices who have some of the same values base that values multiple perspectives, that values multiple voice, that values sharing resources, that values asking hard questions. And sometimes, it's one other colleague, it's two other colleagues, it's supporting each other in that work.
I just looked at it from the flip side to say, rather than put the onus on young people, I would say, what about practitioners and pioneers like you and Rajesh, of perhaps doing something which hands over the baton, so to speak, to the younger generation? Because otherwise, I think Rajesh's question of have we come to the end of it or not? And I think maybe it's a critical moment to really look at participatory feminist approaches to participatory research. Because then if you're asking youngsters to reinvent the wheel all over again when there's still a gap left. So I think it could be a turning point now to actually go in that direction, so that you're giving, that we're leaving youngsters a legacy that they can carry forward and build upon. So I don't see it, I don't see the onus on the younger generation, but I see an onus on the pioneers of this movement, and that's an issue that one can talk about. It will come, when we discuss the future of participatory research, the future. So what changes would you make, if any, to the practice of PR as it has been practiced for the past 40 years? As a field of inquiry, does it need to be changed? So this is the same question that we were asking. Where is the the movement, or where is participatory action research heading? And are there any opportunities in that for pursuing gender justice?
I don't know if it's a change so much as just an expansion. That participatory research, I think, has a right to be very proud of the contributions that have been made over a period of time, to be a source of resistance and a source of speaking up, speaking out, acting out. So I think it's a tradition that participatory action researchers have some right to be proud of the work that's been done, and to say that we want to keep expanding that space for more voices isn't to denigrate the sense of the work, but just to understand there's always room for growth, improvement, for improving ourselves as people in this endeavor. I'll stop there.
I was intrigued by two recent sort of official developments. When in the 80s we would interact with the world of academia here, particularly in South Asia, they would dismiss participatory research as unscientific, all the usual. Or some would say, oh, this is social work, this is not knowledge, etc. And but lately, there are two very interesting developments which indicate that perhaps there is some pressure on sort of research institutions or researchers to embrace participatory research. One is this new scheme that has been launched in India. I was telling you about University Grants Commission on setting up centers for fostering social responsibility. And in the guidelines for the scheme, they're talking about use of participatory research methodology. And in this, our newly launched campaign on Swachh Bharat, elimination of open defecation, etc., they're talking about setting up research and learning units where participatory action research is being recommended. Now, in both ways, it could be an opportunity as well, but it could also be a way of, losing the, as you said, the radical edge, which is always a tension between piloting something and scaling it up. So I feel that in the larger democratic context that we are in, it will be increasingly more important to get missing voices to be heard. And those missing voices are not limited to, the class or the caste alone. I think a big question in our society now is age. The young people versus the elderly. And the voice of the youth is trying to assert itself. Keeping the feminist perspective in the focus, I feel, liberates me to look at other forms of discrimination and justice as well. Because we have that experience more universal. The experience of masculinity and femininity, the socialization experience. If you keep that in your framework, then you will be able to use this more generally in this. So I see the possibility of some spaces opening up in higher education institutions here for learning and practice of participatory research. But ultimately, the real test of it is whether it gets applied in practice. Learning participatory research in the classroom is never going to be enough, and the classroom does not provide for what you said in the beginning: time or resources for relationship building, for facilitation. No research methodology course teaches you how to facilitate conversations, how to enable women to speak up, and that's where the contribution of adult education and learning theories come into play. So, while new opportunities for teaching participatory research in academic institutions may emerge, I think more support for practice will make the difference. Martha's challenge is to the pioneers, and maybe we need to think of ways by which we can support that in the context in which we find ourselves today. There was a time when we were busy building our centers and institutions, and maybe now we can support others to take it forward.
Anya?
Any concluding remarks on that? Because I think that's the most interesting part of the evening. How are we going to take this forward?
I'd like to say for myself how re-energizing it is to have this conversation, to see so many of you who talk to people during the break that you're doing work that is participatory in your particular settings. I think PRIA has played all the people in PRIA have played such an important role worldwide in the work of participatory action research, and you're continuing that work. It's energizing, and it gives us all, as we leave here, work to do.
Thank you. So we come to the end of this conversation. I think it's been very stimulating, but it also holds a lot of promise for the future, especially from the pioneers of this movement. So we look forward to that, and look forward to interacting with you now and taking the whole process of participatory research forward. So thank you both, and thank you to the audience for all your wonderful questions. And may I invite you all for a cup of tea now?
Yes.